If you had to guess how many students between the ages of 8 and 12 want to make a career in social media or have aspirations for a career in social media, what would you place that percentage at? Welcome to the Learning Mindset Podcast. My name is Frank, and I'm here to talk about different topics in education and learning that I think are interesting, and I hope you find are interesting as well. With this whole how many students want to become YouTubers or social media, I was really surprised with an article that I read that was published in July 26, 2022, and it talked about some of the breakdowns of surveys that they did, specifically with a younger age group, 8 to 12. So it's important to understand that this is a group that these are more aspirational type of careers, much like the old days when we wanted to become policemen, firemen, astronauts, maybe a doctor, in those types of careers. The statistics were 34.5% of those students wanted to become YouTubers specifically. 18.1% were interested in becoming vloggers or bloggers. 16%, approximately 16% even split, wanted to become either pop stars or movie stars. And if you add up those percentages, you can see that the majority of students in that age group look towards social media or entertainment as being viable or interesting careers for them. Now, I don't know whether they'll retain that interest as they grow older and become more exposed to different career paths, but it is very interesting to see those numbers. I found them interesting myself. It's no secret. I have a YouTube channel myself, Learning and Technology with Frank, where I talk more about how we can use technology to learn and teach better. And actually, the reason I started this podcast is so that I could go maybe into more topics around the theories and the concepts around learning and such, the learning mindset. But what also amazed me about these younger students were the motivations that they had for becoming social media creators. You'd think, they want to become rich and famous. Famous is one of them, but the number one reason that they were interested in these careers was creativity, that it provided them with a creative outlet. The number two reason was fame, to become famous and well-known. And then the third reason was self-expression, a way of expressing themselves in the world. And then the fourth motivation was money. Now, as we know with a younger audience, maybe, they don't have the realities of having to pay a mortgage. Well, I hope not. Hope no 8 to 12-year-olds are having to pay a mortgage or even are necessarily aware of that need. But it is interesting that money wasn't the number one reason. Now, the real question here, though, is why is YouTube such an attractive career choice or such an aspirational career choice for these students? And specifically with this podcast, I want to talk about why maybe we should encourage them to work in YouTube worlds and develop the skill sets that YouTube can provide, and why maybe yourself as an instructor or an educator might also want to become involved in YouTube. I guess, first of all, the main reason is YouTube is massive. Now, there's a lot of aspects to YouTube. I sort of liken it to a bookstore. Not every single book or topic is going to be of interest to you, but that doesn't mean that you won't find those topics that are of interest to you. You will find those in that bookstore. So whether it's a shelf or whether it's a whole section, there will be times where you can find the exact information that you want on YouTube, to the point where it is the number 2 search engine in the world, right behind Google. It's a huge, some of the statistics are amazing. 2.6 billion users worldwide. There's basically 62% of all global consumers use YouTube. That's maybe more of a marketing statistic. YouTube is watched for over 1 billion hours of video every day, generating billions and billions of views. There's a bunch of localization, language localization. A lot of people, there's 400 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every minute. So there's a lot of other statistics on YouTube. You can certainly look them up. But the point that I'm making here is it's big and it's only getting bigger. Started in 2005, we're seeing that YouTube hasn't just grown into a massive player in the social media space, but it continues to be a massive player, and it's only getting bigger as they add more features. And a huge part of the YouTube ecosystem, I suppose, is that they're able to find islands of audience. And that can be a very beneficial thing for students. For example, how many of your students that are struggling with a subject, any subject, rely on YouTube videos to help get additional instruction on those subjects when you're not around as an instructor? I can speak for my own kids. They actually will use YouTube tutorials in the evenings and on the weekends. The instructor's not around. They're not going to be able to ask a question. They may have been introduced to a concept or a methodology during the day, and they need either a reinforcement of that methodology, or they didn't understand it. They want to learn it a little bit better, maybe get a different perspective. I know with my own students, I sometimes encourage them to find external sources. I'm just a version of the truth. They need to see multiple versions of the truth so that they can find their own understanding of the topics that we're discussing. You know, one of the things that I always like to say is when it comes to learning something new, we always want to fail in private and we want to succeed in public. The other axiom that I often use is we want to set people up for success. So when it comes to YouTube, that ability to fail in private and succeed in public means that we can sometimes not just use YouTube as a consumption, but also as a creation platform. So what we can do is obviously we can utilize YouTube as a way of helping students that are struggling by directing them to videos, hopefully my videos or any video on YouTube that supports the curriculum that we're working with. And they can try and test their knowledge. They can reinforce their knowledge through the consumption of that information. And then they can actually express themselves by using simple computers and simple things like a smartphone in order to create their own content. So this plays really well into universal design. So if we look at UDL and learning, how does that fit into this YouTube ecosystem? Well, when we look at universal design of learning, we're looking at really three different areas. You can break it up depending on which books you want to read today. But we have representation, which are the different formats that we use. So YouTube becomes another format to deliver content, to allow students to see content. We have action and expression. That's the creation. So instead of writing an essay or necessarily taking a test, students are able to create artifacts of knowledge. They're able to create videos. They're able to create different social media artifacts that help them understand their learning. So they can not just have the learning that occurs, but they can have the awareness or the metacognition they're creating for an audience. They're creating for an audience of peers. They may just be creating for an audience of one themselves as a way of reflecting on their learning. And then, of course, the engagement or the motivation with, 34.5% of students being aspirational to have a career as a YouTuber, having them work and build YouTube videos becomes a very exciting thing for them to do in the classroom. So it's a great way to motivate your students. So it really fits quite nicely introducing YouTube consumption and creation in a classroom curriculum. It really creates a great UDL experience where we get that representation, the action expression, and the engagement, which are the pillars of UDL design. Now, this becomes even more enhanced with some new announcements by YouTube. YouTube has, as an educator, my channel on YouTube, again, Learning and Technology with Frank, I'll plug it. So if we have that YouTube channel, when I create videos, I really fall into two categories. I don't have the cleanest of delineations there. I'm either technology or I'm education. So depending on the video that I produce, I will label it as such. About a year ago, the education field, when I would fill out a video that said education, I had the option of not just categorizing it as an educational video, I also had the option of subcategorizing it. So I could say what curriculum it fit into, what grade level was it at, what country's educational system did it support. So this became a very valuable way that if I was creating, for example, a course on, say, Excel or Microsoft Teams, I could actually connect that to a computer science curriculum, or I could connect it to whatever appropriate curriculum. Maybe a more pure one would be something like a math or an English curriculum. So if I did a video on how to structure an essay, I could say this is appropriate for the Canadian educational system, grade 8 English, whatever the case may be. Well, the big announcement by YouTube, this is actually as of September 8th, I read in their blog, September 8th, 2022, is they now have a new, or they're planning to have in 2023, a new YouTube player for education. So this was part of a blog post, and they're going to create the opportunity for educational content creators to build courses. So this will be an ad-free or a recommendation engine-free courses that we can build. This will be something that we can then have with the education player, incorporate into our school learning management systems, the LMSs that we're using. And this becomes a platform to house all of that video, to have all of that information, all of that learning resources in one place. And what I would encourage is that we also take this a step further and we ask, can we create a classroom YouTube delivery system? We do not have to make these videos public. You can make these videos unlisted. You can make them private, unlisted, or public. I would like to see something by YouTube in the future where we could have a classroom YouTube channel that's only available to members of the classroom, maybe through some incorporation with Google Classroom. I suspect, based upon what I've seen in the educational YouTube space, that this is something that will eventually evolve into the platform. So I can have basically a classroom YouTube channel where once the student is registered in my class, they'll have access to see the videos of themselves and that other students made, and I'll be able to control the privacy. And then, of course, when the class ends, I'll be able to remove those videos, or I'll be able to ensure that we're protecting the privacy and such of the children, of course. But older students, of course, in the adult space, which is where I predominantly teach, having them create a YouTube artifact works really well. It gives them another creative outlet to express and demonstrate their learning. So, and again, it's something that they can work on in groups, they could work on individually. We can have them, have their trials and tribulations, and it's going to allow them to develop many skills beyond just the skill that they're presenting in the video. Let me give you an example of that. Suppose I have a group of students and I want them to somehow express to me their ability to analyze a business for the way that business can benefit from the use of data in decision making. So this is right in my wheelhouse. I teach data analysis, I teach business intelligence reporting, and data science. So when I want my students to demonstrate an expression of knowledge, typically what I will do is that we will have a number of different tests. We'll have a number of different labs that the students have to do. But if I want to incorporate concepts of universal design learning, UDL learning, what I'm able to do there is I could say, all I really care about is that you demonstrate to me that you're able to analyze a business and you're able to relate the decision-making process to the data collection process. Well, I can do that. I can say create a YouTube video, or obviously I can use traditional methods, a case study, a group presentation, but by giving the students more options, giving them more ways to express themselves, I really think that fits into the engagement and the motivational piece of utilizing technology in order to allow for greater learning. So as I've talked about a little bit in this podcast, we really have a lot of tools at our disposal that maybe we view one way, but maybe if we just shift our lens a little bit and we think of them in a different way and we look at and see how they're evolving over time. So we see YouTube evolving into this learning platform. It's just a part of the platform as a whole. And obviously entertainment and travel and all of these things are still going to remain on the platform, but we're going to be able to use YouTube for education, YouTube for learning, to provide those distraction-free environments where we only have videos that are related to learning. We know that our students are interested in YouTube by the statistics of how many of the youngest students want to become YouTubers or social media creators. We know that the YouTube platform is massive. It has a lot behind it. So why not take advantage of that? Why not incorporate that into our classes, into our learning, and into our students' success? Thank you so much for listening. You can visit my website and my blog at www.franksclass.ca. You can visit the website for this podcast, learningmindset.ca, or you can check me out on YouTube at Learning and Technology with Frank. Thank you so much for listening to the Learning Mindset Podcast. My name is Frank. You can find me over on YouTube on the channel Learning and Technology with Frank, where I look at topics on how we can learn and teach more effectively with technology. You can see my blog over at Summit Tech Academy, where I write about topics related to learning and technology. And of course, stay tuned and subscribe for more episodes here of the podcast. Again, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in the next episode.